going to show you, first of all, what Firebrand Atheism is. A lot of people think Firebrand Atheism is just being rude, and that's not it at all. Because I'm not here to be rude, and neither are you. I'm here to be the nice guy. I'm here to be the good guy. So are you, I hope. So it's not about that. I'm going to get into what Firebrand Atheism is and what it is not. Then I'm going to get into some examples, some Billboard examples, in person and en masse. Finally, results. I love results. What I love more is data. I love data. The good kind of data. Quantitative data from independent sources that you can research yourselves and prove or disprove if my assumptions are wrong. That kind of data. It's all through fighting God, and I like to do data properly. You know, I like to actually go in and try to prove myself wrong with a null hypothesis and then fail to prove myself wrong, that kind of stuff. You know, skepticism. And then I'm going to get into how you can use this stuff moving forward. And I've got 45 minutes is actually a short presentation, so I'm going to skip a few things. But let's get right into it now. I want to talk about what Firebrand Atheism is by beginning with what Firebrand Atheism is not. Turn my volume up a little bit. I'm going to talk a little softer. Firebrand Atheism is not insulting people by calling them idiots or brain damaged or other derogatory names. This is the mark of a weak argument, but ours is the strongest argument by far, and we need to act like it. Okay, this is the first bullet point of this presentation, and I begin with a dramatic understatement. Can you see it? When I say this argument, ours argument, is the strongest argument by far, that is a dramatic understatement. Ours is not the strongest argument by far. Ours is the only argument with any strength at all. Every theistic argument, every non-atheistic argument is completely bullshit. All of it. And I'm not saying that because I want to say, yay, we're right, and yay, they're wrong. I need to understand that we are right here. This isn't my truth versus your truth. This isn't, oh, well, we all have our personal truths or any such crap like that. This is correct versus incorrect. This is right versus wrong. Aaron got up here and mentioned a great definition for truth, which is something that conforms with reality. Ours is the only position that does that. Everyone else fails. So we need to own how right we are. Firebrand Atheism is not getting in people's faces and screaming and browbeating in an attempt to deconvert. Why? Because that's what you do if you have a weak argument. If you have a weak argument, you brainwash your kids. You make them memorize stuff, right? If you have a weak argument, you go la 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 when you hear the other stuff. If you have a weak argument, you say, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, when somebody says you're wrong. We don't need to do that. We don't need to yell. We can get angry because we're fighting ignorance, but we don't need to yell and we don't need to do any of that screaming. What we need to use is the stuff that's on our side, which is 100% of the facts and data. Finally, Firebrand Atheism is not defending or promoting atheism with dogma or law. Atheism must be understood by a critical thinking and hard data. Now, I just got back from my second trip to China on the Fighting God book tour. I'll say that again. Fighting God is written by an American for an American audience about American atheism. It is written only in English. And I have been to China twice on my book tour. Why? Because China had required atheism for a period of time, but it was all memorization and regurgitation. It wasn't critically thinking. It was taught like religion. Just remember there is no God. And so when they relaxed that law, Islam and Christianity began to flood into China. And that's what's happening right now. And so they're scared because when you've got nothing but dogma, dogma can replace it. But if you've got critical thinking and good understanding, you're impenetrable and invulnerable. So that's what Firebrand Atheism is not. Let's talk a little bit about what Firebrand Atheism is, and I put it into 5 points, but really if you want to bring all of fighting God down to 3 words, You can do it with these. Tell the truth. That's it. That's the big secret of Firebrand Atheism. Tell the truth as often as possible, with an emphasis, of course, on the tell. Religion is a lie. All of it. That is the truth. Gods are false. All of them. That is also the truth. And respect is earned, and religion hasn't earned any. Believers' beliefs do not imbue respect for a religion. That is the truth. But here's another truth. Because I mentioned emphasis on the tell. And we all know where I'm going with this. Because way too often, atheists are silent. Rule 1, point 1, tell the truth, means when somebody says, well, we're all Christians here, and you don't raise your hand and say no, you are effectively raising your hand and saying, yes, we are all Christians here. You are lying by saying nothing. You are giving a direct impression that is opposite to what is the truth. That is a lie. And we, as atheists, need to own that silence often implies acquiescence. Silence is, in and of itself, often a lie. And we have to stop doing that. Point 2. Don't feign respect for the unrespectable. See point 1. If you're feigning respect for something that you don't respect, you're lying, right? If you say, yeah, I respect your religious beliefs, and you don't respect their religious beliefs, you're lying. And you're not helping anybody when you lie. You're not helping anybody. You're feigning respect for the unrespectable. If somebody says, I agree with homeopathy, and you say, yeah, the homeopathy is great. Are you doing a good deed? Is that a nice thing to do? Is that a wonderful thing to do? Oh, you didn't hurt their feelings by telling them that they were being conned, telling them that they were being scammed. But they are being conned. They are being scammed. And you're doing nobody any favors by showing respect for the shit that is religion. Point 3. Sometimes I swear. You know why people from New Jersey swear so much? Because fuck you. Point 3. Don't accept inequality or privilege as acceptable, even if it is the norm. See point 2. In God we trust. One nation under God. God bless America during the 7th inning stretch. We are inundated with religion from this country on a regular basis, and it's all linked to patriotism. Which implies, we all know, that if you don't have that faith, you're not as patriotic. That makes us second-class citizens. And it's not okay. It's not okay at all that anyone in this country is treated any less because they think differently about a God. That's the opposite of religious freedom. That's the opposite of the separation of church and state. That's the opposite of the American way. And when we say, oh, it's okay, we are feigning respect for the unrespectable. We are lying. It is not at all okay. Point 4. If someone claims to be offended by the truth, it is because they are used to privilege and inequality. Don't let "I'm offended by your words" silence you. Clarify that it's the beliefs and not the person. All right. When you're talking to somebody and they say, "I'm offended by your beliefs," why do they say that? I'm offended by what you say. What you're saying offends me. This is what they say when they have nothing to come back with, right? This is what religion teaches them to say. Why? Well, what are you supposed to do when somebody says you've offended them? You're supposed to apologize. You're supposed to say, "I'm sorry." You're supposed to step back, put your head down and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you." You have now apologized for telling the truth. It's a great tool. But when you're talking to somebody who's that indoctrinated, "I'm offended by your words," means that you're talking to somebody who can't separate themselves from their religion. They've been indoctrinated since birth, probably, into thinking you are a Christian, you are a Muslim, you are a Jew. And they can't separate themselves out. So when somebody says, I'm offended by your words, your immediate reaction is going to be, I should step back and say, I'm sorry. But what you should do is keep talking, because this is the person who needs to hear what you have to say. And all you have to do is mention that you're saying, you're a whole bunch of things. You're a man, a woman, a brother, a sister, and a Christian. And the Christian part is wrong. And that's what I disagree with. That's not all of you. That's just a small part of you. Point five brings up my friend. Yes, I do represent that as the Prophet Muhammad of Islam. I do that all the time. Point 5, if someone tries to limit your freedom using religion, do points 1 to 4, only louder. So why do we draw Muhammad? Why do I put this picture up there? Do I do it just to piss off Muslim people? No. If I was doing it just to piss off Muslim people, I would have been doing this all along. And so would everybody else. But once upon a time, this cartoon caused a few riots, lots of riots. People died. So here's that quantitative data from independent sources. Okay? Please Google this image, Google that time frame, and look up the Islamic protests that followed. You'll see a whole bunch of angry people, and you'll see them all carrying signs with a common phrase: do not draw Muhammad. And then the entire world said, we will not yield to terrorism. And then the entire world yielded to terrorism. And all of a sudden, we can't draw Muhammad anymore. All of a sudden, that South Park episode doesn't exist. All of a sudden, you don't get to see that anymore. And if you draw Muhammad, you're being the instigator. If somebody riots because you draw Muhammad, they could riot, people could die, it'll be your fault. You don't want to do that. What we need to do is stifle that stuff, because anybody who draws Muhammad is poking the Muslims in the eye. They're the bad guys, not the people who are making the threats. Ladies and gentlemen, let me put something to you. If I took a loaded gun and put it in your hand and pointed it to my head and cocked the hammer, and then I said some really, really, really awful things about your mother, and you pulled the trigger, it is 100% your fault that I am dead. You're the murderer. It doesn't matter what I say. I can say anything I want, anytime I want. You pull the trigger, it's murder on you. There is no way that you can blame people for exercising their rights because other people murder people. But then what happened was the entire world said, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. So that's great, right? That solves the problem, right? Now nobody's angry at us anymore, of course. And now, if you go forward into the Charlie Hebdo era and you do the same search for the same people in the same Islamic protests, you'll see a whole lot of angry people. And they're all holding up signs. And they all have a common theme. Do not insult Islam. Because when you say yes to terrorism, when you acquiesce, when you give up a right, it is never, never, never the last right that you will give up. When you acquiesce to terrorism, what you will get is more terrorism. And that's what we have now. First, you can't draw Muhammad, then you can't insult Islam, and then, I'm sorry, ma'am, you're showing your hair. That offends me. That's why we need to understand that when we give up a right, it's permanent. And we're not giving up a right for us. We're giving up a right for the next generation because they're not going to get it back. Our children's generation is not set up to have the freedom to draw Muhammad. It's not set up to have the freedom to insult Islam. And that is our fault, and that is our failing. And that's why it is our responsibility. When somebody says it's against my religious laws for you to do that, you need to do that. Now, as we move forward, I want to talk about some numbers. I told you before that there's lots of numbers in fighting God, lots of quantitative research, and there's one number that I'd like to set a whole slide to, and that is the number 0. 0 is a wonderful number, ladies and gentlemen. It's an important number. It's an important number because it is absolute. Absolute. It's a wonderful thing. So many times we atheists shun absolutisms. We don't want to say we're sure. We don't want to say we're right because we put religion on a pedestal and religion demands that we not. So I'm here to put you back down. I'm here to put the feet on the ground. Let's talk about the number 0. Again, how right we are. This is not our truth versus their truth. This is right versus wrong. The number of times an atheistic argument has been beaten by a theistic argument is 0. God did it has never been proven right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is being recorded. And I want to say it very clearly. God did it has never been proven right. If anybody, anywhere, can prove me wrong once, I will quit my job. We need to own how right we are. The number of psychics, demons, ghouls, ghosts, or spirits that have been proven real in the history of the world across all religions is 0. Ghost Hunters has been on the air for 10 seasons. And they have these fuzzy cameras and these narrow lenses. And they say, I'm in the most haunted house everywhere. What was that? It must be a ghost. There's no other possible explanation. And they're on the TV for 10 seasons, legitimizing the idea that there are ghosts. Don't think this doesn't affect you. Don't think this doesn't bring down the entire country. When they have 10 seasons, it's common. It's reasonable to say, well, if they've got 10 seasons, they must have found evidence for a ghost. If any ghost hunter show anywhere in any country finds any provable evidence for any ghost ever, I will quit my job. I'm not nervous because there's no such thing as freaking ghosts, ladies and gentlemen. And we have to own that this is a problem. The Reagans brought an astrologer to the White House. We can't have this dumbing down our society and legitimizing lies en masse to our children. The number of psychics, guess what? The number of psychics is 0. The Long Island medium, she's not really a medium, Gail. We have to own how right we are and how much of a scam there is here and our own responsibility to attack this crap. Number 3, the number of miracles that have actually been proven to have happened across all religions in the history of the world is 0. Prove me wrong once. I'll quit my job. The Catholic Church is about to canonize Mother Teresa. Yeah, you know what that means, right? That means that she has 2 proven miracles. 2 proven miracles, which means the Catholic Church can take down the president of American Atheists tomorrow. All they have to do is show me one, ever, across all religions in world history. Just once takes me down. I'm not nervous because it's all a lie. All a scam. Great absolute terms, ladies and gentlemen. All of it, everywhere, ever, is a lie. It's a scam. Prove me wrong once. I'll quit my job. I'm not afraid because it's never happened in world history. In other words, the amount of evidence that separates the myths of yesteryear from the respected religions of today is 0. Why? Because all of it combined is 0. 0, ladies and gentlemen. In other words, let's put it into a summary that we can all take home. The sum total of scientifically valid proof for anything supernatural ever is 0. Prove me wrong once, I will quit my job. We need to own how right we are. This is not a matter of my truth versus your truth. This is not a sliding scale. This is correct versus scam. This is myth versus reality. And we need to own how right we are and that it is good and ethical to spread correct information, even if the people spreading lies say it's not. Euphemisms. I'm going to go straight through this. Euphemisms. Where are you, Jim? How you doing, buddy? Jim has already alluded to this, and of course with Jim I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak. Euphemisms hurt the cause. Yes, they do. And euphemisms, ladies and gentlemen, is all those wonderful words that you all use instead of calling yourselves atheists, which of course you all are. Now, an atheist is the broadest, most correct term. Yes, we're having that conversation. Atheist is the most broadest and most correct term. It means the absence of a belief in a deity. There's nothing shameful or negative in the term, but religion wants you to think it is. Is there a negative term to independent? Is independent a negative term? Is unchained a negative term? No. Theism is the negative term, and when you're without that, you are free of it. It's a good thing, just like independence. Now let's make some things clear here. If you don't have a belief in a God, you're an atheist. If you don't have a belief in a God and you think the universe is unknowable, you're an atheist. If you don't have a belief in a God but you wish there were a God, and wouldn't it be nice if there were a God, you're an atheist. If you don't have a belief in a God but you like some of the secular trappings of the religion in which you were raised, you're an atheist. If you don't have a belief in a God, ladies and gentlemen, and you absolutely positively hate the word atheist with every fiber of your being, tough shit, you're still an atheist. Now, atheist answers the question about religion. I treat people nicely does not answer what is your religion. Now, I've got a friend over here, his name is Larry. He's going to be the subject of me poking at him a little bit. Hi, Larry. How you doing? Hi. So Larry, you're a vegetarian, right? Yep. Larry's a vegetarian, ladies and gentlemen.
I grew up on a dairy farm. I'm definitely not a vegetarian.
For the next 5 minutes. For the next 5 minutes. So I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago, an atheist who called himself a humanist, and he puffed out his chest at me. He literally puffed out his chest, and he said, I don't tell people that I'm an atheist. I tell people I'm a humanist because I don't like to tell people what I'm not. I like to tell people what I am. What a crock of shit that was. So Larry here is a vegetarian. Now, if I go up to Larry, the vegetarian, and I say, Larry, what kind of meat do you eat? And he puffs out his chest and he says, I like salad. Larry, why don't you tell people you don't eat meat? I don't like to tell people what I don't eat. I like to tell people what I do eat. Larry is clearly avoiding the question. Larry is clearly not answering the question. In fact, he's going way out of his way not to answer the question. Ladies and gentlemen, when somebody asks you about your religion, they are asking about your position on God, and you all know it. They're not asking you what your position is on treating people fairly. Humanism is a philosophy. It's not a religion. So when somebody asks you about your religion and you answer with, I like salad, are you telling the truth? No, you're not. You're sidestepping the issue. You're not telling the truth. Larry needs to step up and say, I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian. If you don't believe in gods, you're atheists. Point 3. Atheist delivers the correct information more effectively than euphemisms. Jim. Wait, let's bring up a chart because I've got quantitative data for this. I love quantitative data. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to look me up on this. Quantitative data from independent sources is a wonderful thing. You can do that shit. 87%, ladies and gentlemen, 87% of Americans essentially know what an atheist is. Wow, 87%. If you're communicating with somebody and you want to deliver the information that you don't believe in gods, you got an 87% chance of hitting the nail on the head when you use the word atheist. If you use the word agnostic, you've got a 50-50 shot. That means half the time you say, I'm an agnostic, you're not only not answering the question, but you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand what you're saying. You've got a 50-50 shot. That sucks. But it's not as bad as secular. Yes, secular, ladies and gentlemen, Secular Student Alliance, you openly secular, Secular Coalition for America, you guys. I'm picking on Larry again. You guys have a 70% chance, Larry. You have a 70% chance of being misunderstood. 70% chance of being misunderstood. Folks, Openly Secular had this great campaign to get people to come out on Twitter and say, I'm John and I'm secular. The only problem was, nobody knows what secular means. So we had such great tweets as, I'm a Christian and I'm secular. No, you're not. Now, 70% being misunderstood, that's really bad. If you're trying to communicate and you're communicating with a term that's 70% chance of being misunderstood, you're communicating very poorly, but you're not communicating nearly as poorly as if you were to use the words atheist, humanist, and free thinker, Jim. Because if you use the word humanist and free thinker, you've got a 90% chance of being misunderstood. I'm going to say that again. A whopping 90%, approximately, of Americans do not know what a humanist is, do not know what a free thinker is. Now, folks, if you're asked a question and you answer that question with a term that you know has a 90% chance of being misunderstood, are you telling the truth? Yeah. Or are you hiding? And if you're hiding, the question is why? Folks, we are doing nobody any favors when we use these euphemisms. We are doing nobody any good. When we are not delivering our information, we are not helping anyone. Let's go on a little bit more. What does the truth look like? Now, when I'm talking about how we work at American Atheists, I want to talk a little bit about a concept called the Overton window. By the way, Jim, how hard is my 9 o'clock? Okay. So before I get into the billboards themselves, I want to talk about a business concept called the Overton window. The Overton window is not a term that I coined or anything like that. It's basically an imaginary window of things that you can say and be politically correct. If you say something inside the Overton window, you are politically correct. Now, if you go outside the Overton window, people react. And if people react, there's more likely that there's going to be news items about it. Now, how do you move the Overton window? You move the Overton window by going outside the Overton window and pulling. A good example is Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney ran for president twice. The first time he ran, he was the Mormon president. Everybody freaked out. Nobody took him seriously. And then the second time, he was the front runner. He went outside the Overton window. Mormon running for president was not in that realm. Everybody talked about it. He pulled it. And then he was inside the Overton window. Okay, so let's talk about billboards. We put up our first billboard in 2010 that said, you know it's a myth, this season celebrate reason. This billboard was way outside the Overton window because it was the first time that anybody had had the gall to call religion a myth in a big billboard. And everybody freaked out. Because it was so far outside the Overton window, the press freaked out. This billboard, ladies and gentlemen, was on the national news in 9 different countries. 9 different countries, ladies and gentlemen. And what happened? It went into cartoons. This is a cartoon from the USA Today. They made fun of it, or they used it for another joke. This is how we got into the zeitgeist of America. The Catholic League put up this counter billboard. CNN says, this guy looks exactly like me. Memes came out. Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. This is not Photoshop. They actually featured our billboard on Saturday Night Live. And it was great. But of course, after that happens, you have to keep going, right? So then we put up more billboards outside the Overton window even farther. You know it's a myth, and you have a choice in Arabic, in a Muslim neighborhood in New Jersey. By the way, now's a good time for me to mention that the sum total, every death threat I've ever had comes from Christians. I put this up in a Muslim neighborhood. Every death threat I've ever had comes from Christians. Praise Jesus. We went a little farther. You know they're all scams. We know you're right. This is the billboard that got me on the O'Reilly factor and spawned the meme face. You know there is no God. We know you're right. We put this one everywhere around the national convention in Des Moines, Iowa. We peppered the city, the Christian city of Des Moines, with these billboards. And then finally, what myths do you see the first time we put Neptune, Jesus, Santa Claus, and the devil on the same billboard? Now, each and every one of these billboards builds on the last. Each and every one of these billboards has a different story. And each and every one of these billboards was outside the Overton window and pulled. And now my question. What happens if I put "you know it's a myth" back up? What happens if I do it tomorrow? Nothing. Nothing. Because nothing would happen, because making fun of religion and calling it a myth is now inside the Overton window. We have moved the Overton window and we can see it. We can see how we've affected the psychology of this country. And that's one of the things that I'm very proud of. Now, Firebrand in person, a few anecdotes that I'm going to briefly cut through because we're running out of time. People need to know that open and even harsh criticism of religion is okay and is even good and necessary. I hope everybody can agree with that statement. I hope everybody can agree that people need to know that open and even harsh criticism of religion is okay and that it is indeed good and necessary. What you may not have thought of is that religion won't tell you that. Religion won't tell you that. No religion will tell you that. And if that's the case, and this is important, and we are the only ones who are going to say it, it's important for us to do so. It's our responsibility to say it. If we don't say this, nobody's going to say this. That makes it our responsibility. Even if they find it distasteful, they need and deserve to hear it. Even if they find it distasteful, religious people need and deserve to hear it. So often, I get questions from people. "Dave, I know this guy. He's a doctor and a lawyer and he's really smart, but he believes in a man in the sky. Why is he so stupid?" Ladies and gentlemen, religious people are not stupid. My mother was religious. She was not stupid. My grandmother was religious. She was not stupid. Religious people are injured. They are good, intelligent people who have been brainwashed into thinking that something that is clearly wrong is real and true. And ladies and gentlemen, there but for dumb luck go we. If we had been born to fundamentalist parents in Pakistan, we'd be very different people right now, probably very religious. We need to understand religious people are not stupid. They're not retarded. They're not brain damaged. They're injured. They are injured. And they need to be treated as such. They need to be treated. I went to the Creation Museum today, and I was there while parents indoctrinated their children. And I wanted to shake those parents. But the truth is that those parents are victims of an indoctrination to such an extent that they need to brainwash their children. That's real harm. And it's something that we as atheists must recognize. Religious people are not stupid. They're not morons. They're injured. And it's good and ethical for us to help them cure themselves. Bigotry comes from ignorance. Forcing the conversation allows enlightenment and de-demonizes atheism and atheists. And Larry thought he was off the hook. But that's not the case either. Okay. So now, for the sake of for the sake of time, Larry is an atheophobe. Larry hates atheists, ladies and gentlemen, for the next 5 minutes. So when I go up to Larry and I say, "Hi, Larry, I'm an atheist," he comes back and he says, "Blah, I hate atheists, blah." Okay, so first things first, right? I'll live, right? I'm going to live. If Larry yells at me for being an atheist, I will be fine. Let's get that out of the way. Now, then, my friend Dan, who is very meek and mild, he goes up to, my little joke, he goes up to Larry. So Dan goes up to Larry after me. And Dan says, hi, Larry, I'm an atheist. And Larry says, oh, I met another one of you once before. He had great hair. But you can see that by calling myself an atheist to Larry, by using a term that is understood 87% of the time, I've gotten him used to the idea that atheists exist. I have moved Larry's minuscule Overton window, his personal Overton window, I've moved it. So that when Dan goes up and says I'm an atheist, he's going to get a much easier time. And I might not even know about it. I'll never know about that happened. It's going to be easier on the next atheist, and I'm never going to know about it. Now let's take it from another perspective. I go up to Larry and I say, hi, Larry. I'm a secular, rationalistic, non-theistic agnostic. And he says, oh, good, at least you're not an atheist. And then Dan goes up to him afterwards and says, hi, I'm an atheist. And what does Dan get? I hate atheists, blah. So when I come out as an atheist, and when I use the term to Larry, to the atheophobe, yeah, I may take a little heat, but I am moving his window. I am decreasing his bigotry on a micro level. That's what makes calling yourself an atheist activism in and of itself. But there's more, because I'm also making life better for the next person. I'm making it easier on Dan. I am doing something for some unknown person and many person beyond them. I'm taking the heat for them. That's what makes calling yourself an atheist humanism. In fact, that's what makes calling yourself an atheist far more humanistic than calling yourself a humanist. Point 4. Thank you, Larry. You are off the hook now. Good. Atheists honoring religion legitimizes it in the eyes of the theists, but religion deserves no honor, and the theists deserve honesty without hostility. Deserve honesty without hostility. I know I'm going late, Jim, but this is a good story. I have a friend, his name is Robert. Robert's a Muslim. And he came up to me at a party once, and he said, you know what, Dave, I want to let you know, I respect your religious beliefs. I respect your atheism. And I said, thank you very much. And he said, yeah, you know, you make your points, you talk well, and you make a lot of sense. I just want you to know that I respect that. And I said, thank you again. And then he said, now that I've respected your position, you should respect Islam too. And I said, no. You respect my position because my position is respectable. You believe in an invisible man in the sky. I don't respect that. He got annoyed and walked away. Did I do the right thing? Yes. I didn't do the easy thing. I didn't do the fun thing. The fun thing would have been to say, yes, I respect Islam too. And then we could have had a bro hug, and it would have been great. We would have toasted, and there would have been a little bonding moment between me and my friend. And then my friend Robert would have left that party with one very clear message, that the president of American Atheist respects Islam. I would have cemented the pedestal on which religion sits in his brain. Ladies and gentlemen, I would never do that to a friend. That's not a nice thing to do. That's not a good thing to do. That's not a humanistic thing to do. Letting that stuff sit in his brain, reinforcing it, because I'm too lazy and, frankly, frightened, cowardly, in order to say, no, I don't respect it, I would have done him no favors. I would have done me no favors. I would have helped religion by saying yes. I could have taken the easy road. I could have taken the fun road. We were at a party. Why didn't I just take the fun road? Because it wouldn't have been the nice thing to do. It wouldn't have been the ethical thing to do. It wouldn't have been the humanistic thing to do. And it's not something that I would ever do to a friend, let alone anyone else. All right. Firebrand Atheism en masse. We're running out of time, so I'm going to actually skip this chart. It's a good chart, but we're not going to do it. We're going to go straight to this one. Results. Quantitative data from independent sources. This is the best chart. I love this chart. Okay, we're looking at two lines here, folks. We got a blue line and we got a red line. The blue line is the number of times the word atheist is searched in Google in a given month. The number of times the word atheist is searched in Google in a given month. And you can see it goes up and down and up and down. Why does it go up and down? It goes up and down because of news items. When news items hit, people look it up. And so you could just pick this point here and Google atheist and that data point and that times point, and you can find out what caused that spike in people searching for the word atheist. And it all goes down. When there's nothing to point it, the searches go down to this red line, which I represent as the floor. And I represent that as a barometer for atheist normalcy. Atheist normalcy. The amount of times that people search for the word atheist in Google when they are not being prompted to do so. I represent that as an atheist normalcy term. And what happens is it goes up and down until right about here. And it goes up, followed by another spike. And as you can tell, that line never goes back down. Even when there's no more news items, that search does not go back down. Atheist normalcy raises right here. And if you do a search for those news items, you can see that God delusion led it to a Christian nation and God is not great all came out at the same time. They all went on national book tour. Everybody was talking about them. And they seem to have raised atheist normalcy in this country. Okay, as we go a little bit farther along, a pattern emerges. Now we see a spike every Christmas. That's what I call the O'Reilly factor. So every year we have a war on Christmas, and every year Bill O'Reilly complains about us, and there's this big spike followed by a trough, and it goes up and down every year until right here. Then there's a huge spike, and then the floor rises again. What causes this? Well, you may remember two things that happened in around this time. Number one was one of the FFRF lawsuits, and another thing was the Dawkins bus ads when he said, there's probably no God, now stop worrying and enjoy your life. Put it all over London, but it was all over the American news. Spiked up and changed the country a little bit. Increased atheist normalcy again, until right about there. Now that little tail is September of 2010. In September of 2010, two things happened. Number one, the Pew Research came out and said that atheists know more about religion than religious people. But far more importantly, I was elected president of American Atheist. Okay, folks, we started doing some serious Firebrand Atheism, and here's what happened. Now, what you're seeing here is a spike that corresponds almost on a one-to-one level with American Atheist activity. These are all the billboards that I already showed you. There's the Arabic and Hebrew billboards. There's the Reason Rally. There's the Christian and Mormon billboard. We put a Mormon billboard on a truck, and we followed the Mitt Romney campaign around. It was great. And what you are seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is a rise of atheist normalcy twice as high and in half the time. Twice as high in half the time. A lot of people ask me what we get from American Atheist membership. What you get from American Atheist membership is 5 employees working extremely hard with no debt to change this country in a real way. Let's look at a little more. We got the number of people calling themselves atheists and the number of people calling themselves agnostic. A nice little uptick right here. Gee, I wonder how that corresponds with that blue line on the last chart. Wow. The number of people calling themselves atheists increases at the same time as the big jump from all of our activities, which makes a little bit of sense. We go outside the Overton window, people report on us, people look it up, and people are more emboldened to call themselves atheists. That's interesting. How does that affect the rest of it? Well, let's look at this. Admittedly, this sample size is only 3 samples, but it is quantitative, so I'm using it. Quantitative and independent. 1, 2, 3, with an uptick right there. How many people would vote for an atheist? Not a free thinker, not a none. How many people would vote for an atheist? And there's an uptick, and guess what that corresponds to? That blue line. So let me put it in a nice nutshell for you. American Atheist puts up billboards and does other things that are outside the Overton window. The press freaks out. The press reports on it. People start looking at it because of the press. They start understanding what atheism is, so they're more likely to call themselves atheists. When they're more likely to call themselves atheists, they go up to the atheophobes and they say, "Hi, I'm an atheist," and they move on a micro level the Overton windows of the atheophobes. So the atheophobes are more likely to vote for an atheist. This is how American Atheist has changed this country. This is how it works. And this is, again, quantitative data, and I believe, and I've been saying this now and it's not been corrected, that American Atheist is the only nonprofit organization in the country. I believe it's the only nonprofit organization in the country that can point to quantitative independent evidence that they, on an individual level, are changing this country for the good. Now is the time when I ask you for money. Because we are way beyond it. It used to be that we were ashamed to ask people for money. It used to be that we would say, "Oh, no, we can't ask people for money because they'll walk out." Folks, the time in your lives when it's okay for you not to be members of the organizations that support you is over. I just went to a $100 million thing. Tomorrow I'm going to another $100 million thing. American Atheist membership is $35 a year. And I want every one of you, I'm asking every single one of you to join today. I'm asking every single one of you to pitch in. If you think you don't have to, you're wrong. If you think I don't need you, we don't need you, you're wrong. We're fighting an uphill battle. And we've got nothing but truth on our side. Truth is important, but we need your money too. And you know, people say, "Oh, they're asking for money. I'm not going to give them any money," because that's just like what religion does. Religion asks you for money too. Yeah, that's great, geniuses. Now listen, if you don't join because religion joins, that's kind of exactly what religion wants you to do, right? Shut up, sit down, say you're sorry when you say you are an atheist and somebody's offended, and don't give any money to the cause of truth and justice, even when it's an efficient organization with, by the way, transparent numbers, and we have quantitative evidence supporting the fact that we are changing this country for the better. That's exactly what religion wants you to do. Shut up, sit down, and put your wallet away. You're doing religion a favor. Yes, I'm saying it. You're doing religion a favor when you don't help out your movement. And that includes Tri-State Freethinkers. That includes American Atheist and Freedom from Religion Foundation. The time of our lives when we are just happy to have butts in seats is over. We need your financial support. In summary, Firebrand Atheism is more effective than the nice guy approach at causing movement on a nationwide level. It is also more effective in personal situations because it chips away at the privilege of the mythology. All religions are lies. Great absolute terms here, folks. All religions are lies. All gods are false. All miracles are fake. Those who believe such things are real are victims of lies. And it is a good and ethical thing to help free these people from that which is clearly wrong. Now, let me be clear. I'm going a little bit late, but it's okay because I'm the president. Let me be clear. I'm not saying we all need to go out door to door. But I am saying if we did, if I went across the street on some Sunday morning to my neighbor's house and I knocked on the door and I got invited in and I converted the entire family to atheism, you must admit good has been done. You must admit I have done them a good deed. They are better off. So often we atheists have a knee-jerk reaction. I'm not going to do what religion does. Religion knocks on doors. Religion proselytizes. Religion pushes their terms. I'm not going to do that. And once again, that is exactly what religion wants you to do. That is exactly what religion wants you to do. And when you do that, you are not helping yourself. You're not helping the victims of religion. You are helping religion itself. We need to own the good part of pushing atheism. We need to own the benefits to them, the humanism of pushing atheism. Point 3, Firebrand Atheism is more effective at challenging religion than the so-called nice guy approach. So it's better for the listeners, and it is indeed, again, ladies and gentlemen, the nicer thing to do. the nicer thing to do. This is true even if the listener says it's offensive. Why do they say it's offensive? Because they can't separate themselves from their religion, and they need to hear it more. They need to hear it more. Finally, nothing beats facts, and all of them are on our side. Isn't it wonderful to have all of the facts on our side? Use them and you'll win arguments and create new atheists that can do the same. Ignore the facts and teach atheism as dogma, and we become as weak as religion. All right, so Fighting God is getting pretty good reviews. We got them on sale outside. Hammond Meta rated it his favorite atheist book of the year. Dan Orell said if the religious right has one book to fear, Fighting God is that book. J.T. Eberhard said it was one of the most enjoyable atheist reads he's ever come across. And Richard Dawkins said how refreshing it is to read a book that is not afraid to speak the truth, sans apology. But before we go, join American Atheists. American Atheist was founded in 1963 by Madalyn Murray O'Hair. If you went to public school and you didn't pray to God in public school, Madalyn Murray O'Hair is to thank for that. We are leading the movement and changing this country with independent, quantifiable results. Independent, quantifiable results. We're efficient. 5 employees total. Debt-free. We don't have a mortgage. We don't pay rent. We own our building outright. We have no credit cards. We take credit cards. We don't have credit cards. And we have independent audits every year, and we publish them online. You won't get that from a church. Our current activities include establishing the Atheist Voting Bloc with the Atheist Voter Program, creating and leading the Patients' Right to Know Act. If you are a hospital, if a hospital decides that they're not going to treat you because it's against their religious views, we think that they should at least have to tell you that, so that you can at least go somewhere else, that you can't be just dying in ignorance. And of course, we're attacking religious exemptions and special rights for churches in the IRS tax code, one of my favorite things. Donations are tax deductible. Please join today. And when I say please join today, I really mean please join. I really mean please join American Atheists. I'm asking you not only to join, but to donate. $35 is for membership, but please give more. If you can give 100, please give 100. If you can give 1,000, 1,200 gets you a life membership. Please give $1,200 for a life membership. And if you can give 10,000, yes, please give 10,000. We need your help. And the amount of time, the time in our lives when we can just coast along is over. We're in a position now, ladies and gentlemen, where we can win this. They're weak. They're weakening. And we're strengthening every day. We're becoming stronger, we're becoming more unified, we're becoming more of a force. And if we push, and if we organize, and if we are activists on the local level for Tri-State Freethinkers and the national level for American Atheists and FFRF, we can actually win this, not only win this battle for ourselves, but we can win the war for our children. We can win the war for our children in this lifetime against religion. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much.
Yes, I understand that my whole life is just a blink of an eye. The history of the earth is with each moment that goes by. But this moment that I'm with you, it feels like time has stood still. It feels somehow like it matters, and that it always will. Thank you so much.